Backgammon is a two-player board game that has been played for centuries. It is a game of strategy and luck that involves moving pieces around a board, trying to be the first to bear off all your pieces. The backgammon board consists of 24 narrow triangles, or points, divided into 4 quadrants of 6 points each. The quadrants are referred to as the player's home board and outer board, and the opponent's home board and outer board. The home board is the quadrant closest to the player, and the outer board is the quadrant farthest from the player. Each player has 15 pieces, which are called checkers. The checkers are arranged on the board in a specific pattern at the beginning of the game. The checkers move around the board in opposite directions. The direction of movement for each player is clockwise for the player's home board and counterclockwise for the opponent's home board. Starting the game. To start the game, each player rolls 1 die. The player with the higher number goes first, and uses the numbers shown on both dice to make their first move. If the players roll the same number, they roll again until one player rolls a higher number. The first move must be made with 2 checkers, one from each player's opponent's home board. The checkers are moved to the player's outer board based on the numbers shown on the dice. The player may choose to move the 2 checkers separately or together. If a player rolls doubles, they get to move 4 checkers instead of 2. Gameplay. After the first move, each player takes turns rolling the dice and moving their checkers. The player must move at least 1 checker based on the number shown on each die. For example, if a player rolls a 4 and a 2, they can either move 1 checker 4 spaces, and another checker 2 spaces, or move 1 checker 6 spaces. If a player rolls doubles, they get to move 4 checkers instead of 2. For example, if a player rolls double 3s, they can move 4 checkers 3 spaces each, or they can move 2 checkers 6 spaces each. If a player rolls a number that they cannot use, such as rolling a 5 when all of their checkers are on the board, they lose their turn. Hitting and entering. If a player lands on a point that is occupied by one of their opponents' checkers, the opponent's checker is hit and placed on the bar in the center of the board. The player must then enter the checker into their opponent's home board before they can make any other moves. To enter a checker, the player must roll a number that corresponds to an open point in their opponent's home board. For example, if a player has a checker on the bar and rolls a 4, they can enter the checker onto the opponent's point 4. If there is no open point in the opponent's home board, the player loses their turn. Bearing off. Once a player has moved all of their checkers into their home board, they can begin bearing off their checkers. To bear off a checker, the player must roll a number that corresponds to the point where the checker is located. For example, if a player has a checker on point 3 and rolls a 3, they can bear off the checker and remove it from the board. If a player cannot bear off any checkers, they must make a legal move with a checker on their home board. If they cannot make a legal move, they lose.